There are many rabbis who speak about mitzvot, the sacred act of goodness we do for others. One in particular shared a very meaningful lesson for me. He taught that a mitzvah isn't measured by its scale, but by the intention behind it. Seeing an injustice and doing whatever you can to set it right, whether it's picking up a single piece of trash, negotiating a peace agreement, or writing a check to a worthy cause. Each act holds equal weight in the work of repairing the world. The key is to do something, anything, to play your part or do your part in Tikkun Olam, the ongoing task of making the world whole again. I was thinking about this and the connection between repairing the world and heroism. According to Merriam-Webster, a hero can be many things: a mythological figure, a war hero, or simply someone admired for noble qualities. But for the purpose of today's conversation, a hero is someone who shows great courage, someone who steps forward to alleviate suffering, to rectify an injustice, or to pursue peace and a healthy planet. A hero may risk personal comfort, even safety, for the greater good. Against the odds, they act anyway, guided by a higher purpose, a higher calling. These heroes literally stick their necks out for the benefit of others, and yes, to repair the world. Welcome to Small and Gutsy, the podcast spotlighting nonprofits and social enterprises with budgets under $10 million. I'm Dr. Laura Shirk-Witkoff, and I'm excited to be your host. We bring you the less told stories of organizations that are bold, passionate, and making real impact. Perhaps you will find needed services, a job, volunteer, invest in, or donate. Small and Gutsy is more than a podcast. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we've recently been ranked number 8 on FeedSpot's top 30 social impact podcasts, and number 3 and number 9 by Million Podcasts for the top 30 volunteer podcasts and for our youth empowerment episodes, respectively. We're proud of these honors, but prouder still of our mission to alleviate the visibility of small but mighty changemakers. Do you know a nonprofit or social enterprise doing incredible work? If you do, please send them our way to laura@smallandgutsy.org. Every so often, you meet someone who makes you stop and think, wow, they really did that? They saw suffering and didn't look away. They saw injustice and stepped forward, even when it cost them. They chose courage over comfort, compassion over convenience. That describes the Giraffe Heroes Project, where they celebrate the people who stick their necks out for the common good, literally stick their necks out. These are change makers, the risk takers, the quiet revolutionaries who don't wait for permission or perfect conditions. They see a need, take action, and make a difference. Since its founding in 1981, the Giraffe Heroes Project has honored people from more than 30 fields and 16 countries, individuals who work to ease suffering, fight injustice, protect our planet, and bring communities together in the name of peace and compassion. But being a giraffe isn't about fame or perfection. It's about courage, the kind that moves through fear, whether they risk financial security, professional standing, or even personal safety. Giraffes take bold, concrete steps to make life better for others. They're not driven by personal gain or recognition. They act because it's right, and in doing so, they inspire the rest of us to reach a little higher, stretch a little further, and yes, stick our own necks out when it matters most. I just love that. Gets me teary, especially with what everything's going on today. This special episode is honoring a platform that shares stories of courage, compassion, and commitment to the common good. Because in a world that often rewards playing it safe, the giraffes remind us what's possible when we dare to care. And it has iterated from telling stories to teaching young folks active citizenship. This is truly a beautiful legacy to be celebrated. I absolutely love their tagline, encouraging today's heroes, training tomorrow's. I was deeply impressed by the inception of this project and our guests who worked on this project together and subsequently fell in love. It's such a love story, too. So in essence, it's both a love story embedded in a hero's story, although I might suggest in this case, it's one and the same. Giraffe Heroes Project is inspiring action in others, and that truly is heroic. I also want to share a few of their qualifiers because I think that they're really important and I really appreciated reading about them. All are on the website as well as their disqualifiers. So let me just share a little bit their general sentiment before I introduce them. Civil disobedience in the manner of a Gandhi or a Martin Luther King Jr. is honored, but not actions that are unconstitutional. A giraffe's actions must be of benefit to a significant number of people, either as beneficiaries of the action or as people who may be inspired to emulate the giraffe. Although there are exceptions, and I encourage everyone to check out their website, that's their general sentiment in who becomes a giraffe hero. I am so honored to introduce my two guests today. Anne Medlock, a freelance editor, publicist, and writer, was living in Manhattan at the time, started the Giraffe Heroes Project in 1981, combining head and heart as an antidote to the mind-numbing violence and trivia that pervaded the media, eroding civic energy and hope. And we were talking just a few minutes before I started reading the opening, and I just thought, boy, we need you now more than ever. And did we ever think from 1981 how things would look today? And we just need those giraffe heroes stepping up in every direction and in every corner. People needed to know about the heroes of our time. That's why this was started, and they still do, and all that they were accomplishing as courageous, compassionate citizens. Anne's strategy for the Giraffe Heroes Project was simple. She would find unknown heroes, commend them as giraffes for sticking their necks out, and get their stories told on radio and television and in print. Giraffe stories would show the public that there was headway being made on the problems of the world, that there were individuals who had solutions and the courage to move into action. The stories would feed people's souls, inform their attitudes, and get them moving on public problems that mattered to them. The idea of telling heroes' stories to inspire others to action has deep roots. People had been telling stories or have been telling stories of heroes for thousands of years as a way to communicate core values. Anne invented the Giraffe Project to do the same thing for current times. She knew that stories go straight to the heart and stay there, bypassing the objections that the mind can throw up to keep out two theories, sort of the rules and admonitions, so admonishments. The nonprofit has since honored almost 2,000 giraffes and told their stories in every medium that's become available over these past decades. Anne has been interviewed by numerous media outlets for her professional nonprofit work and was named as Education Innovator by the National Education Association for her pioneering work on Giraffe Heroes material for classrooms. She also won the Caring Institute's Caring Award. My other guest, John Graham, shipped out on a freighter when he was just 16, hitchhiked through the Algerian Revolution at 19, and was on the team that made the first ascent of Denali's North Wall at 20, a climb so dangerous it's never been repeated. He hitchhiked around the world at 22, working as a correspondent in every war he came across. A U.S. Foreign Service officer for 15 years, he was in the middle of the 1969 revolution in Libya and the war in Vietnam. At the United Nations, he risked his career crossing his own government to support initiatives for peace and justice in Asia, Africa, and Cuba, including engineering a UN plan that helped end apartheid in South Africa. As a global peace builder post-Foreign Service, he contributed to peace efforts between Israel and Palestine. Boy, John, we need you back in now. We need you today. John had met Anne just as she was developing the giraffe idea. At first, he actually admits he thought what she wanted to do was lightweight. He couldn't see how just telling stories would change anything, especially if the symbol for it all was a giraffe. Still, as friends, Anne and John understood that her Giraffe Project and his trainings were aimed at compatible goals through different paths. Well, they will share how that shifted as they fell in love. For the last 42 years, he's been a leader of the Giraffe Heroes Project. I think we can safely say that both Anne and John are giraffe heroes in their own right. So welcome, Anne and John. Your passion is clear. I would love for you to share some moments in those early days of development, and maybe I can even use the word awe in meeting some of the heroes of whom you've interviewed, but I feel a bit in awe connecting with you both today and welcoming you to the Small and Gutsy family. I hope, although you're small and gutsy, that you become big with impact. So you all decide, where do you want to start?
Yeah, I want to start with you and Small and Gutsy. Thanks for the word gutsy, because that's not anatomically one gender. We've all got guts. And too
Thank you.
often I hear people gendering courage. No.
Oh, I
One
have
of
not
one
ever
of
thought
my
of that.
one of the
Interesting.
first
Okay.
advisors to the project was a very famous writer who said, well, you're going to have to work very hard to find women to tell stories about, because courage is a man's issue.
Wow.
So I never asked him for advice again. That was the end of him as an advisor.
Yeah, no kidding. Good for you, Anne. You stood up for us, our female empowerment. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Gutsy was very intentional. I think the organizations that I interview and the people who run them are incredibly gutsy, because it's often on a shoestring or their own money initially or very little money, and they do it anyway and they show up.
I started with the grocery money. That was kind of risky. But this guy was so serious. He wrote the bylaws when we were creating the nonprofit, because I knew that's a very serious guy. He'll know how to write bylaws. And we were in a writers group together in New York. So I saw him every Tuesday. And I was beginning to write stories about these heroes. He was writing very serious stuff and thought what I was doing was quite silly.
Thought it was trivial.
Lightweight was the word that yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. I think I used that exact word. Yeah.
everybody laughs when they see a giraffe. Yeah, that's good, because then you get their attention and then you can begin to talk about serious things.
I thought I would just humor this very interesting and beautiful young woman. That's what I thought.
Young.
I love it. So one was a flirtation, and Anne's intention was, hey, maybe you can write the bylaws, because I don't want to waste my time doing that.
I don't know how to
Good
do
for
that.
you. I love it.
He still does all the serious stuff. He keeps all the wheels turning while I'm off doing crazy stuff all the time. So it works out well.
And curiously enough, I had a lifetime of doing crazy stuff myself, but not this kind of crazy stuff. I just wasn't imaginative enough to do what
Yeah.
Anne did. I didn't see the power in storytelling. I mean, like, I ignored 10,000 years. I think, way back to Neanderthals, people were dancing around the campfire telling the stories of their culture's heroes in order to get more people to be heroic. And then there was the troubadours and whatever. I didn't see that Anne was the troubadour for our times, because I thought, I always had a good gift of gab, that the way to get people to behave better, solve wars, end pollution, whatever, was to preach at them, give wonderful platform speeches, which I did, still do. And that was the way to change it. But here was this woman in a little apartment in Central Park West, and she was doing this thing with the Giraffe Project. And she's a very interesting person. I mean, she was very attractive. And so I hung in there in the writers group, and gradually it began to dawn on me that storytelling was a lot more powerful than me getting up on a stage and pontificating about how we all needed to work for peace and justice.
We'd said at the time, John would have called this the International Society for the Promotion of Courage and Justice.
Something like that.
I love it. Which I totally understand, because that's really what's underneath it. And I get that. But everybody, I know there are a lot of different learning styles. My personal learning style is through story. Someone tells me, well, I'm a therapist. So when someone tells me a story, I remember that much better than I'll remember a fact necessarily, unless the fact is embedded in a story. And then I'll get like Greek mythology or great stories that I remember, because they're embedded in certain things that have occurred in history or supposedly, but they're metaphors for what's occurred. And so everybody learns differently, but I do think stories, and Anne, you put it really well in a piece that I read about you, which is it's really heart. You really bypass the barriers when people hear stories. And I think I have to just make a comment, and I'd love for you to comment on this. Unfortunately, with so much current fabrication and AI, which I think serves a great purpose and can be for good, but can also be for manipulation and evil. And so some of the stories that are out there, it makes it hard for an individual to decipher what's true and what's made up. And I don't know if you have a comment on that, because boy, has that changed in the media world over the last 30 years, 25 years.
I see some artists using it very nicely to create images that would be hard to do otherwise. But mostly I'm appalled because I think writers are the soul of a culture. And if you take that away and mechanicize it, it's like, no. We need our writers. We need our singers, our poets, our composers.
Laura, you started by saying something about romance, and this also ties into storytelling. Back in the day, 81, 82, here's Anne, single mother of the Central Park. I'm just bailing out of the Foreign Service because the Foreign Service is way too slow and too right-wing for me at that point. So I'm looking around, and the writers' group meets on Tuesday night, and it so happens that the movie Superman, the original movie Superman, had just come out. And so I don't know what got into me, but all of a sudden, Anne was this luminous being sitting on the other side of her living room. So I said in a loud voice, hey, does anyone want to go see the movie Superman? And I said it in such a type A male voice that nobody in their right mind would have said yes, except Anne. So Anne and I go to see the movie Superman, and we sit down there and we differ as to whether her hand moved over my hand or the reverse. But whatever, we ended up going back to her.
love that.
We went to one of those, I guess they still have them, an Irish bar that also has food. So we had a little meal and then went back to her apartment. This was Tuesday. And on Friday, I moved in for good and never moved out. So our courtship lasted 3 days.
That's amazing.
It's now 44 years later on a 3-day courtship.
Oh, I love that. What a beautiful story, because it's also, you profess together and individually courage, right? And the concept of risk-taking, appropriate risk-taking. And you did that in your relationship. You went with your gut, but you also had a piece of that cognitive thing going that said, there's something really incredible here. And you went for it. And I just love that you did. I think you took a really great risk that turned out really beautifully for the two of you.
We didn't expect it, but at the wedding, his entry music I set up to be the theme from Superman.
I love that so much.
Oh, God.
But you know what? And I don't know you all. We've had a couple conversations, but it just occurs to me that you hone in on what's important to somebody else and why they do what they do. And so you honor people in that way, and you honor John in that way. And that's really lovely. And it didn't bother you. You were like, yeah, he's a superhero to you. He's Superman to you. And you had the wherewithal to get rid of the advisor who thought courage is only about men.
It's interesting talking about courage, because I talk about courage a lot. I do a lot of, other podcasts and books and stuff. And the whole first half of my life, I thought I was very courageous, but it was all physical. I mean, I climbed big, dangerous mountains like you referred to. Or in the Foreign Service, I was dodging bullets and bombs and revolutions and wars. And I thought, wow, that makes me a real man. That's what real courage was. And about halfway point in my life, maybe a little bit earlier, about early 30s, I began to realize that what scared me wasn't physical things, because I was big and tough and smart, and I kept surviving all these physical near misses. What scared me was, and what I lacked was emotional, spiritual courage, if you will. And I realized that my life was just plain empty without that. And so I was looking for something by the time I arrived in New York at the United Nations. But again, for me, the whole first half of my life, and I know it isn't just the males listening and viewing this broadcast, it isn't just the males, but courage is a lot more than physicality. And it took me a long time to figure that out.
I love that you shared that. And I wish more people would take that in, because I think, at least in my generation, and certainly before later generations, I'm hoping it's shifted a little bit. There is this image of maleness that is, if there's an emotional or spiritual quality, there's a level of weakness, and that simply isn't true.
Yeah.
It's a kind of courage. It's a kind of strength. And I'm so happy you shared that, because there is the physical side, but there is the emotional, spiritual side that fills the soul and creates the whole self. And I really appreciate that you shared that.
I also appreciate that you brought up Tikkun Olam, because we did a whole curriculum for schools.
That's what I wanted to, I'd love for you to share that. So one aspect is finding people who are heroes and they can apply, and there's an application on your website I saw. I love that you rule people in, you rule people out based on a criteria. You can find that there. I thought that was brilliant. And then you've really created this legacy to help future courageous heroes step in and do the right thing. So share a little bit about the school piece. I love that.
Yeah, well, we have materials now. Most of the materials have been converted to digital, and teachers can upload them free. Originally,
It's great.
they were binders, with pages and discs and videotapes, the first ones, and then discs. And now people can't even play the discs. So it's all online, free, and the teacher just hits a button and she's got it.
Well, it's giraffe.org in case it isn't printed someplace.
One of the things that interested me about the whole thing is none of it's competitive. Everything is, what can you offer? What do you do well? Good, let's use that. You put that in the mix with what the other kids have to offer. And together you'll do a project to reach a goal you share.
I
So
love that.
in this sea of competitiveness, when everything is, I got to beat you, I got to do something better than you, we are an oasis of, no, let's see what you got. What can we do together? And I think that in itself is an antidote to too much rivalry when we need to collaborate and cooperate.
I agree. I think competition is good in its place. You go out on a soccer match with your team, you want to win. You try to win. Of course, with proper ethics. You don't want to cheat. You want to win properly. I get that. And at the same time, to be on a team, even a sports team, or to be in a classroom environment, any group environment, you have to collaborate in order to get the best product. It's the MVPs of even sports that are really collaborators. They're really team collaborators. And so you can be competitive and have a competitive spirit and be a collaborator at the same time. One doesn't nullify the other. The problem comes in, and you pointed this out, is when it is all competition, when I have to repress, suppress, beat you in order to win, which is not winning. And so I really love that mindset, because the product is always better with various points of view contributing to a whole.
Yeah, so you don't lose anybody's skills.
So we were just talking about how all of your materials are free for teachers. So how do they access them? And it's all digital at this point, right?
Yeah, just come to giraffe.org and look for the spot that says teachers. It's all there.
And do you have to explain that you are a teacher, or that just is an automatic?
There's a little email sign in, it says, where are you and what's your email? And okay, here it comes. Yeah, so we
great.
get some idea of where the schools are and what grade they're working with. And we also ask them to tell us stories, like what happens with the kids when you do this.
This is great. Can you sort of share a little bit about how many schools you've been able to access, or what locations? Have they been all over?
All over, overseas too, because for a while the U.S. Navy was putting the program into all their overseas schools for their
So
personnel,
great.
which was really sweet.
The downloads have been about 2,000 so far, 2,000 classrooms. Plus all,
Before that,
and before that, with the print, we figured we reached about 375,000 kids through that. So
amazing. So I would love, in your very long history of both interviewing heroes and now sort of the legacy of the next gen, creating good citizens through your storytelling, any aha moments, any moments you want to share that were either a surprise to you? I'm sure there are many.
I have a thing. There was a teacher who taught in a school where a lot of her kids were homeless, and there were like 7 languages in her classroom in an inner city. And
Wow.
she said she never began the year without the Giraffe Project program because if she started there, her kids became a community of learners. Without it,
I love
they were
that.
just random, they were like bouncing off the walls. And her example of it was she took the kids through the program. And at one point in another lesson, a kid stood up and said, "Wait, look out the window." One of the children in the class had been taken out for physical therapy session. And the kid had perfected riding a two-wheel bike.
Oh,
And the rest of the class came to the windows and were cheering because their classmate had got it with the two-wheel bike. And the teacher said, before the Giraffe Heroes program, they wouldn't have even noticed. And that just pleased me so much.
it brings me to tears a little bit, that the level of community that is built and camaraderie and support and connection is unparalleled, especially when you started at a young age. Then you've learned those fundamentals of what it means to support one another and receive support yourself.
Yeah.
And that's really what you're teaching. It's just beautiful. There's nothing more beautiful.
We have created cartoon characters, Stanley and Beatrice Tall, as in stand tall and be tall.
I love it. And a giraffe is a tall neck, and they're tall. Yeah.
We made them twins, so there would be no giggles about flirting or coupling. And
Perfect.
they tell the little kids stories. And those are online too. You can just hit play and Stan and Bee will tell little kids stories about how the giraffe got its long neck. And of course, it's by being brave and caring.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
And there's two stories, one grandpa tells and one grandma tells. So we get down to 3-year-olds who can hear those stories and go, "Oh, I see."
That's wonderful. It's just, again, a wonderful way to build that moral compass internally and that commitment and understanding of what it's like to be part of a community. It's just incredible. Do you have any aha moments of people for either one of you, that you've interviewed, or John, that you've, maybe read an interview and it stood out for you? Any of those aha moments of one of your giraffe heroes?
It's interesting. Out of all those 2,000 Giraffe Heroes, we also have 7 overseas affiliates. And some of the stories from Africa, for example, are just absolutely mind-blowing. And 2 of them came in just in the last month or two on the same subject. It's unfortunately a very common subject in some African countries, and that's the abuse of women and the abuse of women's rights. It is not just voting. It's sometimes awful physical stuff. And if they're in tribal Africa, for example, the tribal system is completely male-dominated. And so we get stories of women who are standing up to tribal chiefs and risking real physical harm because they're upsetting an order which has been in place for thousands of years. And then they have to go change their country's constitution so that women's rights are finally enshrined in that country. And it's really tough, and there's huge threats. I don't just mean people making fun of you. I mean death threats.
Right, for sure.
So I'm always amazed. I mean, there are huge numbers of giraffes doing brave things, of course. But some of these African women just stand out for the sheer bravery of doing what they know is the right thing.
Right. And they're often isolated in doing that too. So they've had to step forward and they've been isolated from their community because they made that choice.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's important, that in telling giraffe stories, not only do we inspire other people, but we inspire the giraffes themselves, because a lot of them do think they are alone and they don't even know anyone's watching them. And so we tell their story and they say, "Well, why are you telling my story? I'm just doing what I have to do." Oh, well, yes, but you're also inspiring a lot of people. And that changes their whole lives. It could be practical things. I mean, there may be some guy, I don't know, maybe he's a barber or something in a small town in Nebraska doing some wonderful, brave work in community councils or something. And he thinks nobody's watching him. Well, we tell his story, and people came in and say, "Hey, Charlie, can I volunteer? Or can I throw you a few bucks? Or what? Get you a story in the local newspaper?" So we build people's lives, the giraffes themselves. It's a multi-purpose organization. We not only inspire other people, we also help keep the giraffes themselves going. And there are plenty of stories. And we get lots of feedback from giraffes. Anne knows them better than I do, but basically they're saying, well, I felt like quitting, but then I heard the giraffe story, so I'm still moving.
I love that. And you're similar to Small and Gutsy in that way because we've created a platform for people like you and organizations like you. You've created a platform for heroes, for giraffes to keep telling their story. And sometimes they're not even aware of the byproduct that comes from sharing their story and what it might do for others and for themselves. And that's also so beautiful because they're not in it for the accolades. They're in it for it is the right thing. And I think, again, that mission and that vision that you've stayed true to has come back around many times through your giraffe stories and through your students. I think the students who get to hear these stories and experience a classroom like that are always better off. That's clear to me through what you just shared. And any interview for you that stands out either in your early days or more recently?
Well, being as old as I am, I have to say I love the stories of the old people. I interviewed a woman who we told her story when she was younger than I am. She was in her 80s. And it always just tickled me to death that she wouldn't quit. She was smuggling pharmaceuticals to revolutionaries in Central America.
Oh, wow.
Describing herself as playing my little old lady part as I went through customs, organizing the environmentalists, mostly white environmentalists, and the tribes in the Pacific Northwest to work together because they weren't
Oh,
collaborating.
wow.
And she sewed them all together, you know? I just love stories like that because I am 92 and I'm not quitting. And I
think it's
love
great.
people who just won't quit.
I would have never thought you were 92, number one.
Yeah, he's
So
only
that's
83.
amazing. Oh, so you got a younger man there, I see.
Oh,
Okay.
yes, that's robbing the cradle. That's what
Robbing
she
the
said.
cradle. But what you said is so significant because it isn't about age per se. Hopefully you stay healthy and you can continue to do what you're doing, but it's having that purpose and being driven to do something to change the world in a positive way has health benefits for us who are aging. It really does. I encourage all sort of actually everyone, but let's say the older generation to think this is actually a public health thing, that doing good actually builds your immune system.
That's a reason to get up in the morning and go for it. Yeah.
Exactly. I love it. I do want to ask this question because I think you don't accept defeat, which I love, both of you, in your characters and how you approach the world and each other. Were there any momentary barriers outside of the one guy who said courage is not a female word? Were there any barriers early on or later on that you had to sort of sit together and say, how do we overcome this? How do we break through this?
Oh, money. That's
Always and forever.
Run a nonprofit, and there's plenty of people that think that storytelling is lightweight. They rather just put their money into candidate A or candidate B, or maybe in the redwoods in California, which is wonderful. As I like to say redwoods, but it's sometimes difficult to convince people of the tenor of the discussion we've had for the last half hour or so, that this is really, really important. That people finding their purpose through some kind of brave service is really important and has been for millennia.
And I think the classroom piece is super important too.
We were nicely funded for classroom work. There are a lot of foundations. We're very interested in active citizenship and service learning. So that worked nicely. Yeah.
Back in the day, we wouldn't even have qualified for Small and Gutsy. There were a period when we were getting federal grants. The Build the Schools program took over $1 million over 10 years.
Wow, that's great. I'm glad that you do qualify, and I'm glad we can have you on this platform. Were there any folks you wanted to interview who were a little bit afraid of sharing their story because of retribution or anything that might come back to them that they had concerns about?
Yeah, I think the reluctance that's most common is, oh, I'm not a hero.
Oh, they didn't see themselves in that bucket. Interesting.
And what we've always said is other people need your example. Because if you talk about what you've done, other people will hear you and they'll think, oh, I could do that. And on that basis, people are very willing to tell their stories.
Yeah, because again, it inspires other people to do their part, whatever their part is, which is just, I think it's so great. And we need it more now than ever, which I said earlier, and I really mean it. So, toward the end of our podcast, I have a round of quick and gutsy questions. You each get an answer. There's no wrong answer. It's sort of the first thing that comes to mind. So, are you ready for our quick and gutsy questions?
Good.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
So then we talked a little bit about funding. So this one will be kind of interesting. What is at the top of your wish list for the Giraffe Heroes project, but the answer can't be money or funding?
That giraffe be a verb.
I love that.
There's something challenging hits you, giraffe it.
Oh, I love that. We've certainly seen that in our world with Google and Kleenex, which is really face tissues. We've got to now giraffe it. Let's go giraffe this. Yeah, I love that. Okay. John, what about you?
I would say that just to make sure that Ann and I are still alive and aware to keep doing what we're doing, because it's really important work. And the more people we can convince of that, and the better we tell our stories, the more people we'll reach. And part of that work is just being creative. And I must say that even as seniors, we are constantly trying new ways of doing things. And I don't just mean the latest in social media. I mean, I've got a series of short form videos that's on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, for example. Hell, I'm 83 years old. I'm doing that. And the same thing. I mean, you look on her website. So we're constantly reinventing ourselves, being true to the giraffe purpose that Anne established in 1981, sure, but constantly reinventing our tactics, our strategies, moving with what the culture is giving us. And I want to make sure that keeps going until they put me in a pine box or cremate me, and, as I want in my will, scatter my ashes on the top of Mount Rainier.
Someone has to get up there. Yeah. No, but I love what you said for a lot of reasons. One is there's a legacy piece. So if you establish that, but the other more important thing is story is about the culture at the moment. And so to use whatever is available at the moment to keep telling the stories is really important because you haven't fallen behind. You're still keeping up with it in a certain way. And I think that has so much value. And it also helps our own intellectual challenges as we get older to keep doing it in the way that the culture sort of expects it so that you don't fall behind. So I think that's fabulous. If you were to think of a song that describes or emulates the Giraffe Heroes project, what would it be?
Wow.
I'm stumped.
I'm not a musician, so I really am stumped. What inspires me now are the stories of real heroes, not the John Waynes that I admired 70 years ago, but, more insightful autobiographies of people like Nelson Mandela, for example, other people that I know I can still learn from.
So for you all, there may be a literary rather than a musical connection or a phrase from a poem, which music often is poetry put to music anyway. So.
Oh, yes. Two roads diverge in the yellow wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that's all the difference. That's my mantra.
That's it. That's yours. Okay. Anne, do you have one?
I'm blanking.
Which is very unusual because she is a poet.
Right. That's what I figured too. But there also may be so many choices.
I have this silly mind. I always go to the joke, and my personal song is from Damn Yankees. Whatever Lola wants, Lola gets.
That's, I love that. Yeah, but that's perfect because you have created something from nothing and it's caught on and you've been doing it for a very long time and you keep iterating and reinventing according to the media at the time because you were in media before, still are. And so you've had to adapt from print to online.
Not from print. The first stories were recorded on LPs, 33, not even 45s. I shipped them to radio stations on 33s.
I love it. So, think about that as iterative versus just sticking with something historic that people today wouldn't even know how to use. So that does, what Lola wants, Lola gets. We'll just replace that with Anne. I love that. What makes Giraffe Heroes project Gutsy, because you're definitely gutsy. And Ann, you commented, you're the first guest I've ever had who's actually commented on that exact word. People have liked the word, but you really went into detail of why you liked it, which it was non-gender specific, which I really appreciate.
I use guts all the time as the requirement for moving forward. It underlies everything. Without guts, nothing's going to happen.
So what makes your organization gutsy? Because you're definitely gutsy.
Doing the work, whether we know we can fund it or not, we just keep going and doing the work without a system of evaluating. We have to have faith that it's affecting people because there's no way to quantify that. This is not something you can put numbers on.
Except the anecdote and the responses you get from teachers are beautiful. And so that's sort of more the empirical side of the research, but you're right. Yeah. So I love that.
Put quantification in here. The equation doesn't work. We did an evaluation with Kellogg Foundation backing of what the effect on kids was, but it was only like 10 kids for 1 year. I mean, you need to look for a lifetime to understand what the effects of such things are.
And also, we don't really need, we get a lot of anecdotal evidence, but we also get plenty of evidence just from our own eyes and ears. This giraffe meme, this giraffe vision for 44 years now, and we totally get it. I mean, back pre-COVID days when I was doing a lot of platform speaking, and, I tell giraffe stories or I talk about courage, and everybody would move toward the edge of their seats because it's a really important thing. And people hunger for it. They hunger for it.
Right.
They really don't want to spend their life on a cell phone. They want something significant. They want to find a purpose with their life because living a life without purpose to me, and I tell people this, it's like a Swiss watch with no hands on it. I mean, what's the purpose?
That's beautifully said. Good metaphor. Mm-hmm.
And, another metaphor I use often is you look in the mirror in the morning and what looks back at you, you want to know it's there for a purpose, that you're not just marking time on the planet. And people absolutely get.
And all different ages get that. They really do, That's why those kids went to the window and cheered their classmate, forward for riding a bike. It was great and had trouble doing it. It was able to do it.
Yeah.
So what is something that outsiders or maybe even a few insiders don't know about the Giraffe Heroes Project?
That we're so small.
Because you seem so much bigger. Yeah.
We have a global impact, especially with our overseas affiliates. We have a large global impact. We're known from here to Singapore. And you're doing all of this on less than $100,000 a year? Really?
Yeah.
We've been called tiny but mighty before.
Oh, I like that.
Small and gutsy.
Yeah. And we always say from small and gutsy, big with impact. Everybody I interview has a big impact, even though they're small. So if you could get one celebrity or influencer to endorse or talk about your organization, who might that be?
I follow Heather Cox Richardson religiously.
I love her. She's great. Isn't she amazing?
She's always talking about we need inspiration. We need the stories. And I think it being over here, we've got them. Take them. They're free.
Yeah. Hey, have you reached out to her? Because I think she would be a great person for you to talk to.
Yeah, she has corresponded with me at some point, but as of yet, she has not said anything to her world about people sticking their necks out. So.
Yeah, maybe she sort of walks that line, but she's fabulous. Yeah, John, what about you?
I think it's probably someone I've already mentioned, and that's Nelson Mandela and his lieutenant, Robert Sobukwe, whom I actually knew.
They're dead.
They're dead, yes, they're dead.
But they have a legacy. They have people behind them. Yeah.
But nonetheless, I'm still inspired by their stories. I mean, 17 years in Robben Island and coming back and doing what he did. The key thing about Sobukwe, and by the way, I told the story to the 5,000 cadets at the U.S. Naval Academy. I told the story of sitting down with his lieutenant, Robert Sobukwe, and talking about those early days and fighting apartheid. And the fact that what impressed me most about Nelson Mandela was the fact that he did it all without hate. And he was able to come together and start the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And while there's problems in South Africa, it's because of his total compassion. That's part of his leadership. And I went for those cadets and I told them that I compared Nelson Mandela with a character from A Few Good Men, the Jack Nicholson character, that you got to have me on the wall character. You know, real leadership was Robert Sobukwe, not that train colonel. And I got a standing ovation with the cadets throwing their hats in the air. I mean,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
at a level they do understand it.
Yeah, and I think stories impact the heart, which is what we've talked about so much. And then it goes from the heart to the head. And then you think, what can I do? And what's my legacy? And I love your metaphor about the watch. Like, are you just a Swiss watch with no hands? What's the point? I'm going to use that one. I love that. So I just want to take a moment to thank you, Anne and John, for your personal commitment to this, for your love story, for the love story that has grown to embrace heroism and courage, cross-gender, cross-continents, that has really allied with how can we make this world a better place. And I just, from small and gutsy to big with impact, because you all are big with impact. And I really hope and pray this spreads and continues to spread. And we'll do our part to help you do that. I've just been inspired by this conversation today and really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for doing this. We're inspired by you.
No, I love it. This will be our club of inspiration of where we create platforms to help other people, because that's what we're both doing. And I love that. So thank you. Any final words, and how do people reach you?
Giraffe.org.
Great, easy. And your website is fabulous, by the way. You can watch videos of the stories. You can look at the classroom information. I got a lot of information off of that and thought it was just great. And you have an amazing history that I would love people, you both do, if people could read about you. And again, your love story is heroic in its own right, because you found a way to really collaborate, move forward, and build this into something that it's a legacy and has inspired many, many people to do what you're hoping everybody does, is collaborate and work toward improving the world. Tikkun olam. So thank you from my heart.
Yeah.
Please go to smallandgutsy.org to check out all of our episodes. And if you're so inclined, please purchase some Small and Gutsy merchandise, consider sponsoring an episode, or making a donation. Both are tax deductible and help keep us going and spotlighting these great organizations. The opinions and viewpoints expressed by our guests are independent and don't reflect the position or views of Small and Gutsy. Of course, we can't take responsibility outside of our own vetting of the organizations we interview, so before you sign on to support or work for them, we encourage you to do your own due diligence and research them as well. I want to thank my partners in this endeavor, the Intrinsic Group, the donors, the sponsors, and my incredible board of directors, Brianna Carmichael, John Gatto, Lucy Mello, Ari McCoy, Melissa Greitz, and Serena Rajabian, who believed in me in this project enough so to sign on to support this effort, and all the folks, friends, and family who have guided and inspired me. And thank you for listening. Together, we are spreading social impact, and you can help us. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to email me the name of any organization you feel would benefit from being interviewed. From small and gutsy to big with impact. I'm Dr. Laura Shirk-Witkoff, and thanks for listening.